Yeah, so I have two experiences, but I'll start with an analogy for people to think about enterprises versus startups. Whenever I used to do some kind of mentoring for people, I used to tell them a classic example of Titanic. If let's say that you are rowing a boat, okay, you are like four of you or six of you, everybody is looking at eye to eye, and then let's say you see the same iceberg. It just takes a minute for these four to six people to coordinate and tilt the boat and avoid the catastrophe. Now, in case of Titanic, when you see it, yeah, they've seen this in the vision, but by the time they could actually turn the boat around, catastrophe still happened, and then there was a lot of loss. So, largely, what happens is you have to take the same analogy on startups versus enterprises. It is sometimes it is to be fair to put in and saying that it is not lack of willingness in enterprises, but it takes a humongous effort for enterprises to truly turn around, like the way Microsoft turned around today under the leadership of Satya in the last 7 years that you see. Those stories are very, very few. Most of the enterprises actually bury with that heaviness of the culture, or like, the brand, or, we know it the way we are doing. So there's a lot of baggage that they carry, which slow them down. And cultural change is not as easy as we think. And most of the efforts go in. So in fact, one of the experiences I had early in my corporate life, where we were part of an acquisition, where we were acquired by a 16 billion company, and the size of us were 100 million, and 100 million company got merged into a 16 billion company. I stayed through 6 months into the journey, and from 100 million, I was heading as a senior vice president, and they were kind enough to give me a portfolio of 400 million, which was like 4x of what I was handling. 6 months through the integration, the most simplistic thing that I was asking is whether the business unit, like how you were explaining, Mike, I was only trying to understand if this business unit that I'm going to head will be a vertical or would it be a shared service. If you really look at it, it's a very simple question. Would I be a vertical in this organization, or would it be a shared service? And the second most question that I constantly ask them is, would this 400 million mean anything, and would it move the needle for you if I make it 400 to 500 or 600? And when the lack of clarity does not exist, and when they continue to see this as a stepchild, and when you really do not see the value, then obviously none of the leadership team would stay. And then 6 months through the acquisition, we understood that this is not the place where we would like to be. And you'll not believe, they paid 1.8x premium to buy the company, but in less than 2 years, more than 60% of the entire organization has left the company. And when I say 60%, we are talking about at least 1,800 to 2,000 people leaving the company in less than 2 years. That is a hell lot of an attrition that you can think of. Again, it's very simple because you made an acquisition, but you did not, really understand, and you really did not do the right things, or you did not even have the right answers, and the company had its own turmoil that happened. But this is one classic example I can tell you on why things might work and not work. And the second example is from my personal experience, where I just 1.5 year ago I sold my company to Titan. This is one of the best acquisitions I can tell you that it happened, knock on wood. The company clearly understood that we bring in agility, we bring in the startup culture. In fact, the company time and again said that the tone is equal, and they truly felt that if you look at this whole solution that Titan has as, like, a piece of puzzle, they said that there is a missing block, and Hug Innovations acquisition actually fit that missing block very well. So we are not trying to complement things, we are actually fitting in rightly into a piece that was missing in the organization. Now, this is the tone that entire senior management took in the town hall meetings. Time and again, they reminded and they said that this is one of the best acquisition that they have done. And the importance also is given in the same way. They did not expect us to relocate. Like, we are right now in Hyderabad, and the entire IT team of Titan is actually in Bangalore. Now, it's natural to say that we are 7,000 people here, and you are just 20 people there. 20 people just move to Bangalore and then join the larger corporate. They didn't do that. They said, it's okay. Hyderabad is equally good. Let's have this center separate. Let's leave them with the culture that they have. Let's make sure that that agility remains. And today, this center is actually tripling in its capacity. In the next 2 years, we might actually have 100 people in this center. So there are aggressive plans to ramp up this, because they feel that it is good that we bought a company, but let's keep that culture. Let's make sure that, whatever their success was, let's not overpower this with our brand and shadow it. So they clearly understood the how to treat the entity, how to give respect to the team, and how to understand the value that we bring onto the table, which was missing. And today my entire team is very, very happy. And again, another important thing is COVID happened. In COVID, it's about financial stability also. I mean, we all made these decisions before COVID. Today, even we all sitting together and look at each other, definitely there is that fear in us saying that if not Titan, how would our, you know behavior or how our mindset would be, because it's not easy to navigate these waters in these tough times. There are revenues that are blocked for multiple months. There is no business happening. Until unless you don't have deep pockets, it's very, very difficult. So even the senior leadership team at Hug Innovations have that gratitude towards Titan, that hey, we've landed in safe harbors. Today we do not have to look at the future of our own employees. There's no fear of getting fired. There's no fear of when and how the next paycheck will come. So there is that sense of gratitude from our team, and there's a lot of sense of gratitude from their team also, saying that we have made the right acquisition and this is the team. So, I've given you one story where things have horribly gone wrong, and I've explained one story where it's been 1.5 years, but the honeymoon continues, and we really have very great relationship working with each other. Even within Titan, they feel that this is one of the smoothest acquisition that has ever happened, and they feel that, like, the culture really is exactly the same between both, where it's about being transparent, having that self respect, making sure that we have care for each other, making sure that, we are not taking our job easy and then always thinking about 5 steps ahead. So
Thank you, Raj. Excellent. So Raj made already the answer the question 3. Andrea, can we go to 3? The 3 was, can you describe one M&A project you participated and what were the key success factors? And you answered extremely well. So now I would like to ask Abhijit. So that was, you are one step ahead. Excellent. So so that was India. So let's see now something outside of India. Abhijit, you would like to go, or I go, up to you. So Mike, one example, yes, go ahead.
So I have, my personal examples are Singapore and Indonesia.
If you could sleep only on one outside of India, then I have another one, because we have a lot of questions.
Sure,
so let's go to one example with your positive, with the key success factors and the example you want to mention. Thank you.
Sure. So the Singapore one was me getting acquired, so I'll leave that out of the way. I'll talk about the success factors from a corporate side. The corporate side, the success factors essentially are all the good things that Raj has already talked about. The people aspect, very importantly. The critical success factors is you identify the people who have been triggering the growth of the company being acquired till date. How do you ensure that those people remain in the growth plan for the next 3, 5, 10 years as part of a bigger picture, or a global picture? In the case of Indonesia, it was impacting beyond certain cities of their presence and getting across different islands of Indonesia. As you know, as far as Indonesia is concerned, it's things are marketed, whether it's PNG or anybody else, they market island by island. Now, getting onto a larger corporate, which gives them the visibility across and the distribution, I think that ensuring the channels and the pipeline for distribution are all in place, that's the second factor. The third, I would say, is squeezing the synergies out. I think that's the most key in the sense, I'll give you a live example here. So there was a Visi Media Group, which is now a listed company. Viva is the brand, VIVA, which is a listed company in Indonesia. And that all came together in a matter of 18 months, where the independent pieces, we had 2 television channels. So we had one actually, which was ANTV in partnership with News Corp. We bought a second television channel, which is now branded as TV1. We bought a startup, which was a new startup. Internet was just starting to boom in Indonesia. Yahoo was the biggest brand of internet still then. So that's the stage at which we acquired a news media as an internet to take on its rival called Detik, which still exists. And Viva News was formed. So now the key in the success factor was squeezing out content from each of those channels and putting it together as a data piece where you're actually creating an data IP box of all the content being produced across the television as well as the digital media entities. I think, as far as I know, with friends back in Indonesia, they still haven't been able to do so. Again, that's something in terms of creating the base for a data repository so that you squeeze out the best from each of the entities is very critical, Mike. Over to you.
Thank you very much. So in my case, I would describe an example between Hong Kong and Europe. It started with a JV and then ended in acquisition. The key success factors was that in this case was a big scale up, maintaining the business model as long as possible in the JV and after the integration. That was a key success factor because the business models were very different. It will be great if you find a company that you fit in like the example of Raj. You fit in but many times this doesn't happen. So maintaining independence is important. Ensure that you get at least resources for growth. In this case, we needed a resource for growth. That's one of the synergies why the merging happened. You need to show collaborative attitude and win-win mindset, because both companies they might have different objectives, but so you need to find a middle way or a win-win approach. On the way to this merging and to create success, it's very important to follow your purpose. This is the lighthouse, you can say. This is the guiding principle. During this merging, you need still to maintain your purpose and follow your purpose. Very important. And something that we should not forget when you have this merging process, never forget your own people and customers, because the success will happen by having motivated people and customers. You remember the example that Raj mentioned, 60% of people left. Why? Because some people did not take care of these people, or they did not take care of the bigger picture. And another thing which to be successful in this integration, it's very, very important to have experienced people on board. If you are a very successful scale up with very young people without experience, you might be very successful, but integrating with a big company without any experience in the management team would be very difficult to create this understanding. The goals are very different. Okay? So that's my answer to the question about key success factors. And Andrea, I would like to go now to the 3 questions, and I would like to ask, not this one, we stay on 3, we go to the Q&A. And there are 3 questions. I don't know if you, it seems that only the panelists can read, right? So I would like to ask each of us to take one and to answer. So Raj and Avijit, which one, any preference?
Raj, you go ahead.
Yeah, so I can take, can synergies between companies be understood by looking at their vision and mission statements?
Okay.
So I'm taking that question. The actual answer is honestly no, because the vision and mission statements are very broad guiding statements like a lighthouse kind of it. The reality is always in the implementation. Making a grand plan, I think it's very easy, but when you actually implement it, that is where the realities. So honestly, I would not get carried away with just the vision and mission statements. You really have to look into all the aspects that each one of us have explained you about how the business unit is treated, what is the cultural integration, key employee retention. Every single aspect has to be considered as part of integration, because more than the founder, there is a lot of people lives at stake. The larger the company is, you are also responsible in making decisions for all the employees who are part of your organization, and make sure that they are at the safe harbors.
Very good, thank you. Abhijit, which one would you like to take?
I'll go for Mike, the earlier one, which is what are the criteria of a successful integration from the perspective of time horizon, okay, business growth, process and technology. Okay, quite a few paradigms, my friend, you've asked. Let me pick on maybe quickly a couple. Time horizon, the financial deal needs to be sealed in 3 weeks, else it doesn't happen, is my personal experience. Once you table something and you need to close that very quickly, else it can drag. I think Kareem is the master of numbers of deals, M&A deals done, 100 plus. Maybe he has developed some better templates of managing the time horizon. Now, from a business growth perspective, it has to make sense in 10x.
By the way,
Go ahead, Mike.
Because Karim cannot talk, he's one of the participants.
Sure.
He can write, of course. I can answer this question. So the time horizon it varies, and a successful integration needs many months. It's not that we talk about you need to make a plan. It's between 6 and 12 months, or can be 6 and 12 years, right? So, sorry, 6 and 2 years. So it depends on the situation, but we talk about months for a successful integration, and even years.
Correct. So correct, Mike. So what I meant was 3 weeks to get the deal done, to ensure that and then it goes into, usually, as Mike said, 18 to 12 months of integration time. Of course, there's a pre-work to it. In the sense, from a corporate side, usually you spend time of 6 to 12 months figuring out why you need that M&A in the first place. So you could have 3 months of pre-work, and then 3 months of sourcing and identification, and then discussions. There's a short period, ideally, you should keep for the financial discussions. And then post-merger can extend to, as Mike said, 12. In certain cases, I've seen takes 18 months. So that's on the time horizon. From a business growth, 10x is what you should be expecting. So it has to be a multiplier for the startup to be acquired, because they will see huge inorganic growth. That's how it should be. As far as the corporate is concerned, it would count it as a failed merger unless it has been successfully being able to trigger that multiplication factor. From a process and process, I think I've covered it quite a bit by now, talked about it, including the financial templates. From a technology piece, this is where, in today's context, data comes into play. So which means that, are you actually harnessing all the data streams that are coming from each of those units post-merger? So that's my response, Mike. Thanks.
Good, thank you. So I will try to answer the next question, which is the best strategy to find a company for sale or any resource available. So normally what you do is big corporates go to banks, and they look through the banking sector, what companies to acquire. or you go to specialized companies that they specialize in M&A and they have access to various channels, or you go to innovation accelerators that they have a lot of startups or scale-ups that they know what, after you specify what you need. So practically you need to look for support from others. You need to ask people in your network, you need to reach to accelerators that they have connections with many startups, scale-ups, innovation companies. And if you want to go to corporate, then you need to go to banks. Here we talk mainly between startups, scale-ups, and corporates. And for this, you don't need to banks. You need to go to banks, which are more traditional corporations, corporate targets. Is private equity, but here we talk about more about investments like VC investments, this kind of stage. Then for this, you need to go to look for accelerators or people or companies they help startups, scale-ups to grow. For example, like 10x2. That's one example. But for traditional companies, corporate to corporate, it happens through the banking sector. The banks have certain departments that they look for corporations to be acquired. Simone, I don't know if I understand your question, how to balance the safeguard of standalone business with expected execution of synergies. In my experience, standalone business is critical to be protected, but is frequently considered as given by M&A sponsor, naturally focused on the value generation driven by synergies. Before the merging, you need to make certain agreements. You don't need to merge because of the sake of merging. You need to make an agreement what is the best way to merge. If you don't agree, you should not make merge. If you merge, afterwards it's too late to be able to influence anything. Okay? That's a bit my answer.
Mike, permission
yes.
to add to that?
Yes.
Sure. I think that's a great question from the synergy perspective. Now, as Mike said, if you are selling your company to the merging with a corporate, if you don't get the synergies and get the synergies aligned in thought process, don't go for it. Now, having said that, it's also the culture, and to get it right from your perspective, if you are the selling party. I'll go back to Raj, what mentioned, that it's great to hear Tatas have changed. Jamshed will kill me. I hope he's not listening. Now, when I left the Tata Group, it was run by committees. I ran away from Tata Tele. But having said that, and there was a lot of at the corporate level, at the Bombay House level, there was a thought of how to look at things not independently. What I hear now, and Raj validated that, is it's a great change that has happened, and Mr. Ratan Tata himself has been at the as driving end of it to look at the startups being acquired to be and let them be as part of their work culture. And that's how you'll safeguard their standalone business proposition without overloading the corporate culture on them. And I think that's very key. Thanks, Mike.
Very good, thank you.